Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnana Shalakaya Chakshurun विदितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुक्तापरकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणा रघुनाथं वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपदां सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त राधाकान्त नमोस्तुते। तप्त काञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So, welcome to our continued reading of chapter 14. So the title of the chapter is
The three modes of material nature.
Three Modes of Material Nature. Yes. So today we'll discuss a little bit about the three modes. And I thought since Nrsimha Chaturthi is coming on Tuesday, we can discuss a little bit about that as well. Desires. So we'll read the 4th and maybe 5th verse today. Discuss briefly and then talk a little bit about Nrsimha Chaturthi. Okay? So, if somebody wants to read the 4th verse.
It should be understood that all species of life, O son of Kunti, are made possible by birth in this material nature, and that I am the seed-giving Father. In this verse, it is clearly explained that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is the original Father of all living entities. The living entities are combinations of material nature and spiritual nature. Such living entities are seen not only on this planet but on every planet, even on the highest where Brahma is situated. Everywhere there are living entities. Within the earth there are living entities, within the water and within fire. All these appearances are due to mother material nature and Krishna's seed-giving process. The purport is that the material world is impregnated with living entities who come out in various forms at the time of creation according to their past deeds.
So I think we discussed a little bit about this last time, this verse. So we understand who is our Supreme Father?
Krishna.
Krishna. So what about our current mother and father? How many current mother and fathers have we had?
Millions.
We've had millions.
Millions and millions.
We just celebrated Mother's Day. Upcoming is Father's Day, where we celebrate. But we know that we've had millions of births. Right? So with that comes mother and father. But who is our original father? Krishna is explaining here. It is he who is our original father. Right? So he is the seed-giving Father. And why is He our Father? Based on what fact?
He's the source of everything.
He's a source of everything. So that's like the ultimate reason, right? What is He not the source of? Maybe that's easier to explain.
Nothing.
He's the source of everything, right? And what is our soul? Where does it come from? It's part and parcel of Krishna, right? So if it's part and parcel of Krishna, then He is our Father. He's our source, right? Just like when we have children, they are part and parcel of the mother and father. But that is on the material platform. This body is generated. But where did this body come from? All the matter. It's also Krishna, right? It's you see. I was reading one purport from Srila Prabhupada. He talks about the earthen pot. You know, if you see an earthen pot, seeing the pot implies that there was a. What does it imply?
Clay.
Clay,
There's
dirt,
clay,
water,
Huh?
water,
Water.
Ingredients.
Huh?
Ingredients.
Ingredients. But does that make a pot?
hands to manufacture it.
Hands.
Person.
A person, a potter. Okay. What else? What else is needed? You have the ingredients. You have the potter.
Intelligence.
Intelligence. Huh?
Yeah, intelligence.
Intelligence. You need to know how to make a pot. And you need like a wheel, right? A potter's wheel and everything. So of all those things, what is Krishna not the source of? He is the source of the ingredients, right? Where did the clay come from? Right? Where did the water come from? We talk about water as well as hydrogen and oxygen. But where did hydrogen and oxygen come from? We know, right? That the water is the perspiration from Vishnu. Otherwise, we have no other known for its source. The potter, the body, where did that come from? Krishna. The wheel in which the potter makes the pot, where did that come from? Krishna. So you see, just one simple pot. Not only is it earthen, so it's coming from earth, but all the facilities to transform it from raw earth to pot also comes from Krishna. So Krishna is the source of everything. Right? So this means that when we try to have an experience, oh, I want to be separate from Krishna. Is it possible?
No.
It's not possible, right? So what is in place to make us feel like we might be separated from Krishna?
There we go.
Ego. But what of Krishna's energies is in force to make us feel as though we are separate from Krishna? Maya. Right? The illusionary energy. Because if I know that Krishna is my seed-giving Father, then where should I be reposing my love? My gratitude? Who is the source of my protection? Who is the source of my sustenance? My foodstuffs? My whole existence? It's my Father, Krishna. Right? Just in a simple earthen pot, we could find nothing that was independent of Krishna. So what about our homes that we own, the careers that we've advanced, the cars, our intelligence to maybe play some sports or activities, all these things? Who is the exclusive source of all of that? It's Krishna. And as our seed-giving Father. So, by understanding that all species of life, they come from Krishna, we know our relationship with Krishna is, He is our Supreme Father. who is providing for our entire existence. Krishna is present through all of his material energies and his spiritual energies. Okay? So does that mean you can then worship anything as Krishna? You know, that potter's wheel, that's also Krishna's energy. He's not different from his energy, so is that Krishna? We worship that as the Supreme Lord? No, right? So this is Chaitanya explains the Chintya Veda Veda Tattva. This simultaneously one and different. So yes, it is all of Krishna's energy, but Krishna is separately manifested in the spiritual world. Right? So that is the object of our worship. So when we're going to say that he is my father, sometimes people go, oh, I'm going to worship nature. Because nature is providing me all these resources. That is very good to acknowledge that, you know, something is providing all of our facilities. But who is providing for the nature itself? So it all comes back to the same thing. So he is the seed-giving father for all of us. And we talked last time a little bit about how there are living entities everywhere. Are there living entities on the sun? How can there be on the sun? You know, how would we burn? Right? It was hot today. I think how we can live on the sun. But there are living entities who have a body that can withstand sun. Just like we cannot live in water, but we know there are living entities that can live in the water. And the living entities in the water are thinking, oh, how we can live on land. But we have bodies suitable for such existences. Right? So all species of life, they make us, they come from Krishna. And so there's also another implication then. If Krishna is the seed-giving father for all living entities, then what is our relationship with all other living entities?
Brother, sister.
They are siblings. Even the mosquito?
Yes.
Huh?
Yes.
The mouse? The neighbor who's annoying? Yeah. They're all our siblings, right? So knowing that Krishna is our seed-giving father, it actually leads to a very loving consciousness across all living entities. So now we should see everyone as our siblings. Do we fight with our siblings? Should we? What do you think? We have two sets of siblings. No? Right? Yeah, we may kid each other, but at the end of the day, it's family. Right? So actually we should look upon all living entities with that same light, because they are all the children of Krishna. Hiranyakashipu, he didn't see Prahlad Maharaj in that light, did he? No. So we'll discuss that. So let's read the 5th verse and then come to discuss that a little bit.
Sattvam rajastama iti guna prakriti sambhavaha nibadnanti mahabaho dehe dehinam avyayam. Material nature consists of the three modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. When the eternal living entity comes in contact with the nature, O mighty armed Arjuna, he becomes conditioned by these modes. Purport. The living entity, because he is transcendental, has nothing to do with the material nature. Still, because he has become conditioned by the material world, he is acting under the spell of three modes of material nature. Because living entities have different kinds of bodies in terms of the different aspects of nature, they are induced to act according to that nature. This is the cause of the varieties of happiness and distress.
So actually, we have no separation from Krishna, right? We have no existence separate from the Supreme Lord. But we had a desire to experience life separate from Krishna. So Krishna fulfilled that desire. He enacted in this material world the very powerful illusory energy, Maya, who is simply trying to convince us that we are this body. Because only in that light can we be separated from Krishna. or at least perceive or pretend to be, but actually we're not. And the modes of material nature, how many modes of material nature are there? 3. The 3 modes of nature, they condition the living entity, meaning they create like a covering. And so many varieties then of living entities manifest based on the 3 modes. So there are living entities in the mode of goodness, in the mode of passion, and the mode of ignorance. Right? And so material nature creates all these different species of life. They're like different vehicles. Right? A car company, they produce so many different varieties of cars. But then a person will come and occupy that individual car. Right? So like that, Mother Nature is providing for so many varieties of bodies. Right? But are those bodies the actual life? They're just dead matter. What gives those bodies life? The tree, the zebra, the human, the donkey, the soul. And where does that come from? Krishna. So nature, Mother Nature provides the vehicles. Krishna is providing that. Who is providing Mother Nature? Krishna. So then he is providing both. But the intermediate cause is Mother Nature. Right? So these 3 modes of material nature, they condition the living entity. And when does the living entity become conditioned by the modes? As soon as we enter the material world. Right? Just like as soon as you enter into a pool, you become wet. Can you enter a pool and not become wet? It is all present, right? Mm-hmm. So similarly, in the material world, the 3 modes of material nature are all pervasive. And thus one becomes conditioned. Right? And what does the meaning conditioned mean? Cover.
Act in a certain.
Huh?
To act, to be forced to act in a certain way.
Yeah, to be influenced by, we can say. Now, does the soul become goodness, passion, or ignorance? No. And do you remember what we talked about in the 13th chapter? What did Krishna say about the soul? The example he gave. The soul is what? The soul is Sat Chit Ananda. Yeah. So which means then, can material nature touch it? No. So the spirit soul always remains pure. But the false ego, mind, intelligence, they become conditioned by the modes, and thus the soul is taken on a journey. Right? And so the different species are based on the different modes. And each species acts in a certain way. And we see living entities acting in different conditions. So we're going to talk in the coming weeks about each of the modes and what are the characteristics of these modes. Because what is our ultimate goal in understanding these modes of material nature? To come out of them. Right? Because when we are conditioned by the modes, we are forgetting who is our Father. So we want to remember again what Krishna said in the 4th verse, Aham bija pradaha pita. He is my Father. So the modes of material nature, coordinating with Maya, help us forget that Krishna is our Supreme Father. And thus we live in a bodily consciousness. So is it possible to be free of the modes within the material world? It is? Yes. How?
The right set of consciousness.
And what is that right set of consciousness?
You are a servant of Krishna.
That we are a servant of Krishna. By engaging in devotional service, we can transcend the modes, get beyond the modes, right? So the question that we'll answer is why? What's the benefit, right? What happens when we are conditioned by the modes, and what happens when we have transcended the modes? And of course, we know all the answers because we've been studying for the last 12 chapters, that we know that happiness is only found in relationship to Krishna. That is the only source, because he is the source of all ananda. So that is the three modes that we'll talk about. Yes?
Are you conditioned by Maya as soon as you enter the womb, or are you conditioned once you take birth? You know what I mean? Like, is the baby in the mother's womb conditioned by Maya, or by the material energy?
So the baby in the womb of the mother, Kapila Muni is explaining to Devhuti, is actually begging and praying to Krishna. Krishna, I'll never do this again. Please, get me out of this miserable condition. I'm being bitten by these worms, and I'm being suspended upside down. I'm in this curled position, and mother's food she's eating is burning my skin, and I'm in and I know why. It's because I have, acted in a way that's defiant of you, and I'm sorry. I promise I'll never do it again. And then as soon as the baby emerges from the womb of mother, what happens? Whoosh! Maya captures and covers. And we'll forget, what happened? I don't remember. And when it goes on, living is like preparing to sit like that once more. So in the womb of a mother, one has its consciousness of what is happening, and is praying very intensely.
So mother can't, like, help condition the child, like,
Of course,
better.
of course. Perfect transition. How did Prahlad Maharaj,
Yeah.
the 5-year-old boys in the school of Sandana-Marka, Prahlad Maharaj is preaching to them all great devotional philosophy. And Sandana-Marka are confused. Where is this philosophy coming from? Because nobody has entered the kingdom who would preach it. Nobody would dare. All the demigods were so scared of Hiranyakashipu that if he just raised his eyebrow, they would be trembling in fear and run away. Whole earth was trembling in fear. Right? The fields were cultivating crop without even having to plant crop. Mother Earth was just giving, just to avoid the retribution of Hiranyakashipu. So much. So who could dare enter into the intimate chambers of this school of the children of Hiranyakashipu and all other, classmates and try to preach? Nobody. So they were wondering, where do you got all this knowledge? So where did he get all the knowledge? From that. When did he meet Narada Muni?
When he was in the womb
When he was in the womb of his mother. So can one be conditioned and purified in the womb of mother? Yes, Mother Kayadu. But what's interesting, Mother Kayadu, what happened to her? Huh?
She also got influenced.
She did, but to the same degree as Prahlad Maharaj? No. So she heard, and Prahlad Maharaj heard. But the effect was not the same. So 10 people can hear the same message, but the effect is not the same. What determines the effect?
Humility and sincerity of voice.
Our mood of hearing. Are we actively hearing? Are we passively hearing? Are we humbly hearing? Are we enthusiastically hearing? Are we begrudgingly hearing? So we have a perfect example. Message was heard. Who should have had a better chance to perfect?
Mom.
Yeah. she was there. She could ask questions, she could eat, right? But Prahlad Maharaj actually perfected that state, right? So we see the what mother can do is very, very powerful. But we also see the power of hearing actively, not just passively. So the results are not the same for everyone. They're based on our conditioning, based on our starting point, right? Just like if you put 3 different types of metal into fire, will they all melt at the same time? They'll melt at different times based on the properties of that metal, right? So similarly, when our heart will melt, when we turn it from steel to soft pulp, then it will melt. Okay? Any other questions on this? Huh?
Online, there it is.
Yeah.
People was asking, Hare Krishna Prabhu, when Lord says that he is the seed-giving father for all the living entities in all the worlds, then the moment we get influence in this world by different religions, caste, country, family, etc., can we say that we are under the influence of Maya, moving away from him?
Absolutely. As soon as we make any kind of designation, there's only one universal occupation, because we are all children of Krishna. Not certain land, certain family, certain color, certain creed, no. Everyone is. And everyone has a rightful claim to be loving child of their father. No one can claim, oh no, I can do this, but you cannot. And that is why Krishna consciousness is not religion, Prabhupada said. It is Sanatana Dharma. Religion can change based on our faith, based on our beliefs. But Sanatana Dharma is eternal, the eternal singular occupation. And thus, the one who is unconditioned by the modes does not perceive differences amongst humanity. They do not judge others by the color of their skin, by even their belief systems, or whatever they do. They may just say, yes, maybe there's a little bit more conditioning here, and thus they are behaving in a different way. And so here, who has a different conditioning. But they are all lovable children of Krishna. So that is how we should view. And when we understand the modes, we can see, oh, this person is acting in a very, so much anger that, oh, because they're influenced by the mode of passion. By understanding the modes, we'll be able to understand what is the source of their, dissension. And maybe try to help that person. But one never stops judging, because they're all ultimately our siblings. Okay. Any other questions on that? Okay. So shall we talk a little bit about Lord Nrsimha's appearance day? So, why do we worship Lord Nrsimha? Protection, right? And what is he protecting?
Devotee.
Huh?
Devotee.
He's protecting his devotees. And the devotees, when they pray to Lord Nrsimha, what are they praying for protection for?
Bhakti.
Huh?
Bhakti.
Their bhakti. Why they're praying for protection of their bhakti?
So that I can always serve Krishna.
So that they can always serve Krishna. Yeah. Why else? Why are they praying for protection of their bhakti?
Because Maya is so strong. Make you forget.
Okay, so hold that thought for a second, because I want to go there also, because Maya is so strong. But why aren't they praying for protection of their wealth, of their family, of their life, of their
That's
health?
the only thing that stays with you after death.
only thing that stays with you after death. Okay, and so what makes that so important?
It's eternal.
It's eternal. What is our only real asset? What? Huh?
The opportunity we got.
The opportunity to serve Krishna. That is our greatest wealth. Right? We protect the things that are valuable. Right? When we take our trash outside to the curb, do we pray to protect our trash? Huh? Anybody prays that way? Why? That has no value to us. We're going to get rid of it. Do we insure our socks? We buy insurance on our socks. Huh? We buy a policy, go to Geico or something and say, I'm going to insure my socks. Why? They don't have much value. But our house, we put some insurance on our house. Our cars. How about our bodies? Health. And we buy some insurance, right? So the things that we value, we look to protect. So the devotee knows that Lord Nrsimhadev is a protector. But the devotee knows what it is that's most worthy of protection. And what is the most worthy thing of our protection? Our devotional service. Our service to Krishna. That is what is worthy of protection. So when we pray to Lord Nrsimhadev, we sometimes pray in the mood of protection and protect my health and loved ones and family and all that. And that's nice. We should take it one step further. Protect myself, my family, my loved ones. Bhakti. Their devotional service. Now, as practicing devotees, and sometimes we practice for years and years, and we even look back and think, wow, all the nonsensical things I used to do, and this, that, and the other. Every devotee should have a healthy amount of fear. And I emphasize healthy amount of fear. And what is the healthy amount of fear they should have? What is the greatest fear a devotee should have? It's the opposite of what we think. When we think about Prahlad Maharaj, right? He's fearless. What is the greatest fear a devotee should have?
Losing their devotional service.
What's that?
Losing devotional service.
Losing the devotional service. Losing the opportunity to serve Krishna. I've told you many times, but it's always worth, I enjoyed telling this story. Srila Prabhupada, who was once asked, Prabhupada, what's the difference between you and me? One disciple was asking. And Prabhupada said, you can fall down, but I cannot. And the devotee was struck. He was expecting some, very detailed answer of some, Raganuga Bhakti or something, very. He said, no, you can fall, I can't. And so later that day, Srila Prabhupada was taking darshan of the deities, and he was in a very intense prayerful mood, very sweetly interacting with the deities. And this disciple noted that strong mood of devotion. So after he returned to Srila Prabhupada's room, this disciple asked, Srila Prabhupada, I noticed you were very intensely seeing the deities and meditating in some prayer. Do you mind sharing? What were you contemplating with the deities? And Srila Prabhupada said, I was praying that I do not fall down from this path of devotional service. And the disciple said, wait, but earlier you said you cannot fall down. And Prabhupada said, now you know why. Prabhupada himself would pray, please don't let me leave your devotional service. Sometimes we go, I'm 5 years initiated, I'm double initiated, I'm doing this, that, I'm good, I'm secure. We should have a healthy amount of fear. Again, emphasizing healthy amount. That, yes, at any moment, Maya can grab us. But if we take shelter of the Supreme Lord, He'll always protect us. If that is our desire. So we have to situate in our heart a very strong desire. And this prayerful mood, every time we sing Nrsimharti, we should be praying for that. Please let me not miss a single opportunity to serve you. I don't care if this body perishes in the next minute, but let me not lose my devotional service. That should be our. And we see in so many pastimes in Srimad Bhagavatam that Krishna is always protecting the devotion of his devotees. Always. Ajamil, did he lose his initial bhakti? He was ultimately saved. Bharat Maharaj, right? When he became sidetracked by the deer, he remembered even in the life of a deer that, oh, I made a big mistake. He was protected. Gajendra, as the king of Indraduna, he was cursed. But at the very moment, and he remembered, oh, I remember the prayer I used to pray in my last life. And he became a Brahmin. So we see that Krishna does protect. That has to be our strong desire. So we pray to Lord Nrsimhadev for the protection of our bhakti, for the protection of our most valuable possession. Nothing else we possess actually has any real value. Sometimes it's hard to digest, hard to take, but it's actually factual. That is what we pray. We see Prahlad Maharaj. What was the source of his fearlessness? How is Prahlad Maharaj so fearless?
Faith in Krishna.
Huh?
His faith in Krishna.
His faith in Krishna.
Because he knew that Vishnu would come and protect him.
He knew. Did he? So in his faith in Krishna, was he convinced that Krishna would come and save him?
Yeah.
Okay. You're saying maybe, maybe not?
No, he'll come protect them and whatever.
He'll come and protect him? So I'm going to suggest that he was not convinced that Krishna would come and protect him. But what was he convinced of? Prahlad Maharaj was fearless. But when he was thrown into the pit of snakes, was he convinced Krishna was going to come?
He was convinced that Krishna, whatever he's doing is for the best for him.
Yes. He has full conviction that if I'm to die in this pit of snakes, it's Krishna's perfect plan. It's Krishna's perfect plan for me. Krishna is my
Best wishes.
He is my best well-wisher. He is my father. Hiranyakashipu is not my father. He is my material father. But my all-loving, ever well-wishing father is Krishna. And Krishna is the supreme controller. So if I am to perish in this pit of snakes, or in this fire, or under the feet of these elephants, or from the cliff, or these bulls, okay. He had faith that Krishna's plan was perfect for him. You see the difference? So we may have faith that, Krishna protect me from COVID, or protect me from this or that. But actually, the mood of Prahlad Maharaj, his fearlessness, was on the basis that He had full faith in Krishna's plan. He did not impose his plan upon Krishna. Now, how many times we go and we pray to Krishna and we are praying for our plan over Krishna's plan? Right? The problem is we'll not become fearless then. The path to fearlessness is having faith that Krishna is my supreme ever well-wisher. So the source of Prahlad Maharaj's fearlessness is they had full faith that Krishna was there to protect and love him in whatever way he thought fit. If he thought, this body is done, I'm 5 years old man, ready to go, he's completely content. Because he knew, I am not this body. Right? He was not going to fear something that was temporary, material. But if Prahlad Maharaj had one fear, what was that one fear? Never let me forget you. Right? Never let me forget your devotees, actually he says. He prays for the opportunity to render service to his devotees. So Prahlad Maharaj's fearlessness was placed quite precisely in understanding Krishna's plan. Hiranyakashipu, did he have knowledge? What kind of knowledge Hiranyakashipu had?
All kinds of Vedic knowledge.
He had all kinds of, and how do we know he had all kinds of Vedic knowledge?
Because he preached to his family.
And what did he preach to his family?
The soul is eternal.
The soul is eternal. When Hiranyaksh was killed, and his mother and his sister-in-law and his nieces and nephews were lamenting, he preached full, perfect philosophy of, I am not this body, I am spirit soul. The soul is eternal. There's nothing to lament. Why? Oh, everything is good. Why are you lamenting? Perfect philosophy. So what do we learn from that? Is that all we need?
It's partial.
Huh?
This is partial realization.
It's partial self-realization. But that consciousness, the knowledge, didn't awake the love for Krishna. So one may know, in theory, all of this information. Not only that, how powerful he was. Why he went to Lord Brahma for power?
Because he can get it from demigods.
To become invincible.
To become invincible. But it means he was convinced that he could not become invincible on himself. Right? So there's a mood of surrender. Right? Because he was convinced he could not get it himself. There was a mood of humility. I am not my own person. I am dependent on power from some other superior source. Right? It's a good mood, no? It's a good mood. But did it help him? So we learn from this that Hiranyakashipu was not far off. But those deviations led to, was there any more treacherous of a person than Hiranyakashipu? Think, on the one hand, he is telling his family members, don't lament the death of your child. Nothing to lament. But in the same token, could he tolerate his own child speaking a few words? Did his child die? Did his child threaten Hiranyakashipu? Was he disobedient in a disrespectful way? So in the grand scheme of things, what was this purpose for Hiranyakashipu to lament? Not much. But his inability to tolerate the so-called disobedience of his son, it led to his complete and utter destruction. He lost everything. So we see that we can have the philosophy, but if that philosophy and we can have that humility, if it's not directly dovetailed into devotion to Krishna, it's gone. We can get so far off. When we read about Hiranyakashipu, we think, who could be more ignorant? Actually, he had lots of knowledge, but it was misapplied. And what was Hiranyakashipu's main and primary flaw that led to his inability to transfer that knowledge into bhakti in the heart?
Lust.
Lust? Ego? And why was he not able to transform that knowledge into bhakti? Envy. He didn't have a spiritual master, a guru, to teach, to instruct, to correct, to show how to apply that knowledge. So you can have the knowledge, but you have to be able to apply it in order to achieve the desired result. You can have all the ingredients for a wonderful pie in front of you, but you still have to know how to assemble those ingredients. So Hiranyakashipu, if you think, had many of the ingredients, right? But not having the spiritual master in his life to teach, you can see how far off he went. Right? That he was ready to kill his own son. That type of consciousness. On the one hand, tolerate this loss of your son. On the other hand, I cannot tolerate my child telling me that I should chant and hear about Krishna. Shows the depth of how one can fall.
I had a question.
Yeah.
But he heard all the discourse in the womb, right? Prahlad Maharaj. But then did he have a spiritual master? Then how come his bhakti was so potent?
Narada Muni.
That was when he was in the womb of his mom. That's the only time that he had the contact with Narada Muni. Otherwise, once he came out of the womb, he was not having.
Correct. That was sufficient for his heart to connect. So he was able to perfect that understanding. That was sufficient for him. And of course, he then had the association of the Supreme Lord himself. But yes, that was sufficient for him to perfect. But he had somebody who showered in mercy and taught him the process of devotional service.
That means his conditioning must have been really, no conditioning at all as such for him, right, Prabhu?
It might have been significant conditioning. How quickly Mugari the hunter turned into a perfect devotee, right? by the power of Narada Muni. So we can have extreme conditioning, but if we have potent disciple and potent guru, the transformation can be very strong, very quick. So it is the extent of conditioning is a piece of it, but it's also the mood and the desire of the disciple. Right? So that gives us some comfort. Okay, maybe I have more conditioning than anybody else in the universe, but still I can very rapidly transform from that if I have strong, intense desire for it. So we don't know, we have some knowledge of specifically Prahlad Maharaj's conditioning, but in general, the pace of one's transformation isn't always representative of that is one aspect of it.
Earlier you talked about this thing that the hearing, how it is important. People hear, but the ones who have the intense desire, they are the ones who are able to imbibe the thing in their practical life. So, again, the conditioning plays a role also. So, like comparing two people, if you have intense conditioning, the desire might be there, but may not be able to surface so much, vis-a-vis compared to a person who has less conditioning.
Yes, but bhakti is so powerful that if the desire is there, that trumps any prior conditioning. Because Krishna is situated in our hearts as Paramatma. So he can pierce through any of that conditioning. So ultimately, we have to look at it from two perspectives. When we are observing it externally, we become very tolerant and patient, understanding people's conditioning. When we look at it ourselves from our perspective, we should say, if I'm blaming my conditioning, it is only an excuse. I should be actually more sincere, more desirous, and thus I can purify more quickly. But again, when we're judging externally, yes, we say, oh, why this person is a pure devotee? No, they're coming along with their conditioning. Or why this person is, speaking this way to me and giving me this, it's okay, I'm okay, I'm not, Prahlad Maharaj, right? How he viewed his father. He begged Lord Nrsimhadev to deliver him. So he did not hold a judge by animosity or hold a grudge that way. Right? But the fact remains, the extent of our conditioning, yes, it is a factor in the pace of our progress, but the bigger factor is utsahan, how enthusiastic are we? How determined are we? Narada Muni says, Lolya, we should have greed, it's intense, like I must have it. We have that, yes, we can, it trumps whatever conditioning we step into.
Because Krishna will see that desire and he can
Smash it all. Aham tum sarva papi. He says, I'll take it all. So yeah, conditioning lays a factor.
Even the one moment of association with your devotee transforms.
It only is a moment, right?
One moment.
Lava matra. Right? Lava matra, just 1 millisecond. Sarva siddhya. All the siddhis, all one can have. Not some, sarva siddhya. Right? So, but we can see, wait a minute, I've had so much association, why is it not happening? Right? That is our application. We're not actually associating. We are in a physical presence. We are not associated. So,
what's the difference?
what's the difference?
Association. Actually.
Difference is, I'll give just a mundane example. Two people go to the gym. One is looking at the gym and one is actually using the equipment. Both say, hey, I went to the gym, but one is lamenting, my body is not shaping up. What happened? gym must be broken. They both went to the gym, but one came out transformed, one not. Right? So one is utilizing the facilities. So the difference is when we are in the association of a pure devotee, our mood to associate means to become inspired by. Right? So how much am I actively taking inspiration from that opportunity and applying it in my life, right? So association is an active endeavor. It's not a passive. There's benefits of passive association, but if you really want to maximize the benefits, we actively, like just like going to the temple. Right? We can go to the temple, but we can have varying degrees of experience. You know, we approaching it in a very prayerful mood. To Shri Shri Radha Kundi Vihara, to Srila Prabhupada, in rendering. So where are we going? You know, for a social reason. There's no loss in either one. One can obtain a higher degree, right? So in association, our goal, you know, how I can become inspired by this opportunity, valuing that opportunity, appreciating how rare it is, and also how potent it is, right? So that can help. Just like in anything, you know, you go to any class, you know, am I attentively there? Am I there physically but not mentally, right? Like we have some classes, oh, I was really engaged, and others I was not. And we have that. So like that, the association, if we keep mindful that, oh, this should be active association, we'll make it active, and the benefit will be significant. Right? We see it in, you know, Srila Prabhupada and his disciples, you know. The physical association with Srila Prabhupada was not the defining criteria of progress in devotion. Right? Just like Srila Prabhupada himself. He had very little physical association with his spiritual master. But he writes a very beautiful introduction in the 8th canto where he expresses his mood of surrender to his guru. And it's really touching, and to see how he was surrendered to that instruction. So, you know, his mood was there. He took advantage of that association. We get into Vapumani association as well, but in general, that's the mood. So, and if we're thoughtful about it, it'll happen. If we're thinking about it. Any other comment? Yeah.
Sorry for me, you were saying something.
No.
You were saying the baby in the womb can remember Krishna, but when it's leaving the body, Prabhu doesn't remember Krishna so much. So why it is only specifically in the womb? Is it like a blessing?
Well, when we're leaving the body, the problem is we are attached to all the things that we became attached to during our life in that body. When we are in the womb, we are starting fresh. Although the desires are there, remember, Matashmatir Gyanamupohanam Cha. So Krishna allows us to forget. And although he inspires us for our past desires and stuff, but we don't remember them. So a little bit of a fresh slate in that mood. But in the time of death, the pain is occurring after or at the time. Whereas in time of birth, the pain is before the birth, before the exiting of the womb. So in that point, so when our body is failing us at the time of death, you know, if we don't have the right consciousness, we'll be searching for how I can live a few more minutes, how I can how I can attend to this one last thing for this family member and this, and who's going to take care of my estate, and you know, all these things consume the mind, because those are the things that we're attached to. But throughout our life, if we are attached to Krishna, then when we are leaving this body, what will we be attached to? Krishna. Right? So, that's what happens.
But even after leaving the body, if the soul, if the living entity has to go through so many problems, like in the hell or some punishment, even that time they are not able to think so much.
Not always.
They are in the womb. They're thinking.
No, not always.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I I mean, that is the goal of Yamaraj. Yamaraj is not there to inflict pain, to, you rascal, you did this, let me. The goal is to inflict punishment so that one will think, I better not do this again. That is the goal. But sometimes it happens. Sometimes it doesn't. But that is the goal. Inflict some punishment so that one is inspired not to do that again. And to find a better outcome. One understands the futility of this material world. The devotee is very grateful that this is a Dukhalaya and a Shashvatam place. Because if it wasn't, the devotee thinks, wow, I maybe never think of Krishna. Sometimes you wonder why this world is so miserable. It's the greatest blessing. Because were it not for all the difficulties, we're so foolish, at least speaking for myself, I'll think, oh no, this is not too bad. And I'll never intensify my desire to serve Krishna. The desire to serve Krishna is not to get out of the material world. The desire to serve Krishna should be that because that is the natural state of my love. That is like the most pleasing activity. The demigods, they are praying, what? Let me come and take birth on the earthly planet. All the earthly planet thinking, how I can do some karma, kind of sacrifice, so I can go to the heavenly planets. The demigods are praying. Why? Because in the opulence that we have here, that intensity of desire to love and serve Krishna doesn't manifest. That is the root. So.
In conclusion to what my Mataji is saying in her question. Like, so when the soul leaves the body, then it's being going through a lot of pain, and there's so many different places. I think, I don't know, don't remember Virat River or something like that, right? I think some other river. So does it happen every time it leaves the body that it is going through those stages?
No.
Or
Depending on the extent of our sinful reactions. So if we have extensive sinful reactions, then we go to the place of Yamaraj, so that where we can pay for our actions in a quick way. If we have done light activities, then we'll receive the reactions in our next life without having to go. So it's based on the extent of the reactions that are due to us. So some can be metered out through the course of normal transmigration. But when one is so sinful, then the only way to realistically repay all those sins is that we go to the land of Yamaraj. So it's not that every living entity goes there. It is based on their extent of their sinful activities.
there is a relief.
Yes. Yeah, no question on it? Yeah.
This question, though, is Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah.
Okay. Hare Krishna Prabhu, when Lord says the moment living entities come in contact with material nature, then they are under the influence of three modes of material nature. I have two questions. Using our intelligence, can we overcome the modes of material nature? And the second question is, can our intelligence overcome what is defined as per our horoscope?
So, our material intelligence cannot overcome material nature. Meaning, I cannot invent a machine that can insulate me from the modes of material nature. I cannot invent, a place in the world or go to another planet where I can be free from the modes of material nature. They are present throughout the material creation. So our material intelligence cannot. But our intelligence, if it brings us to devotional service, to knowing who is my eternal Father and rendering service, then one can transcend the modes. And that's why Krishna is going to tell us at the end of this chapter, Mam cha yogi gacharena bhakti yogena sevata sagunan samitite, that one can transcend the gunas, the modes, at once by rendering devotional service. So if our intelligence brings us to render devotional service, then we can transcend the modes and become free. That is the only way. no other way. And so our intelligence must be to acquire this knowledge within this Bhagavad Gita, and then more importantly apply it, as we saw, because you can have the knowledge like Hiranyakashipu had, but if you don't apply it, that is not intelligence. Actually, that is ignorance. Intelligence is I know something's good for me and I still don't do it. What could be more foolish? So sometimes they think, oh, this person has so much knowledge, they know so many verses. And what the application is what matters. Otherwise, it's actually a source of foolishness. Any other comments on Lord Nrsimhadev or any other? Yes.
Why did Hiranyakashipu do penance to become immortal from Brahma? Why could he have done it from Shiva?
Why from Brahma? Because he had seen and heard that Lord Brahma had achieved the power to create by doing austerity and penance. So he thought that, well, let me then, follow in his footsteps. And he achieved it, and then let me serve him. Again, he didn't know who was supreme. He calls Lord Brahma the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When Lord Brahma comes and placates Hiranyakashipu, because his austerity itself was creating havoc. Hiranyakashipu full dandavats to Lord Brahma. And then he offers these great glorification. And the glorifications are kind of humorous because he's addressing Lord Brahma as if he's a supreme Lord, supreme creator. And Prabhupada in all the purports is explaining Krishna is a supreme creator, Krishna is a supreme, and it's good. But Lord Brahma thought, Hiranyakashipu thought Lord Brahma is topmost, because when he saw Lord Vishnu, he thought, I'll sever the head of Vishnu. So you know where is his consciousness. How you can sever the head of Lord Vishnu, right? So that is why he approached Lord Brahma. And then Nrsimhadev says, Lord Brahma, next time, be careful with your wounds. Because Lord Nrsimhadev, Krishna, how loving he is. He appeared. He upheld the word of his devotee Prahlad Maharaj. He upheld the word of Hiranyakashipu and Lord Brahma. Right? He didn't let anything go. And of course, we know Hiranyakashipu is a great devotee of Vijay who performed great service. And we see a very sweet pastime at the end of this where Lord Nrsimhadev sits on the throne of Hiranyakashipu. And this is very, very instructive. The great, great yogis who worship Krishna with great sincerity, they try to invite Krishna to sit, but Krishna does not come and sit. But in reciprocation for who he was, he actually sits on Hiranyakashipu's throne, showing in a very subtle way what the devotees see, and actually he is reciprocating. We know that Jai and Vijay, Prabhupada comments in early part of Srimad Bhagavatam that they took this position as the enemy of Krishna. In one level we say, because they only had to come 3 times versus 7. Right? So they were cursed, either 3 as a demon or 7 as a devotee. But their mood in determining that was not, 3 is less than 7. But nobody is giving Krishna the rasa to fight. Only his devotees can actually get Krishna. When Krishna fights with the demons, he has no invested emotional energy. He doesn't care. He's untouched. He's unchangeable. So how to create that experience of that emotion of fighting, only his devotees can do. So thus, Jai Vijay took this role as a service to Krishna. And so Lord Nrsimhadev also reciprocates very sweetly by sitting on the throne of Hiranyakashipu. very instructive that our acharyas comment on. So, there are many sweet intricacies of this pastime. That's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would read this pastime over and over and over again. Very sweet. Almost the entire 7th canto is dedicated to this pastime. One of the longest, if not longest, pastimes presented in Srimad Bhagavatam. Aside from, of course, Krishna Lila in 10th canto. Any other aspects of the pastime that you all enjoy? Or?
Another clarification.
Yeah.
Hiranyaksha, like Hiranyakashipu was so much affectionate, right, Prabhu, to Hiranyaksha. Like after his death, he wanted to take revenge on Lord Vishnu. But when it comes to Prahlad Maharaj, he was opposite. Is it because you mentioned that one? Is that because Hiranyaksha was obedient and he was always favoring him? And Prahlad Maharaj, like he was okay with, but he was not obeying his father. Is that the reason for it, or is it?
We love our family as long as they obey to us. Our love is conditional. It's not unconditional. Right? So Hiranyakashipu was okay with his family because they were all obedient to him. They're all playing to his ego. Oh, you're great, Hiranyakashipu. I love you all. You're the best. But as soon as that expectation of respect and honor and reverence is not there, become the greatest of enemies. Right? We see personalities, they turn on people like that. So Hiranyakashipu turned on his own son because he would not. A 5-year-old boy who is misguided supposedly, you tolerate. But when your ego is so strong, you have so much lust, that leads to an intolerance of extreme proportions. You use great logic, actually. You even think, oh, killing your son is bad, right? But Hiranyakashipu is brilliant. How did he rationalize killing his son? I don't remember what he said. He said, if you have a diseased body and you have to cut the arm to save the body, what do? You cut the arm. Nobody would ordinarily cut the arm, but if the arm has gangrene, and by not cutting it is going to kill the whole body, you cut the arm. So Hiranyakashipu said, it is not good to kill my son. I am not foolish, you people. But if one son can ruin the whole dynasty of us, the great, powerful asuras, then we must take this measure, though it's not so palatable. You see how our own logic. And what arm are you saying? We have to amputate the arm. So Hiranyakashipu was intelligent, but it was misplaced. Right? Yeah, good logic. And that is why we have to surrender our own intelligence. Because our own intelligence can get us to rationalize so many things. But if we present ourselves like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did, I am a fool, my spiritual master taught me fool number 1, and so he told me just chant. If we surrender our intelligence to our spiritual master, then we avoid, these sorts of calamities. So on one hand, you can say, yeah, this is right, good point, right? He's going to destroy the dynasty, just like to amputate the arm.
There was another verse I remember, Prabhu, on Thursday evening. Narada Muni was saying that when he was telling about Jai and Vijay, when Yudhishthira Maharaj was asking it, like he started about Jai and Vijay and their all these 3 life ascendants. He was saying their absorption was so great the four absorption was given, one by lusty desires, one by fear, one by envy, and one by bhakti, favorable devotional service. So this four makes one to fully absorb in the thinking of Krishna. So Narada Muni was humbly saying that he himself saying that cannot compare to the demons, how much they were absorbed, and I'm not in that level. So that was so much catching to how to understand that. It's we always glorify Narada Muni, but here Narada Muni is putting himself.
Yeah, because he's saying that their intensity of Vishnu Shmaranam is far greater than my own. Narada Muni is saying in that section, and it's like another piece of the puzzle where this is setting aside who Shishupal, for example, is Jayanti, setting aside that for a second. His offense to Krishna was his envy, right? And it was insulting Krishna. Then you compare that to the offense of the Mayavadis, right? So Shishupal to Krishna's face was insulting him, right? The Mayavadis are behind the scenes denying Krishna's existence. So which offense is greater? Why?
Because he accepts Krishna as a person. He is there. He is supreme. They're not accepting, but they know, but they don't want to accept it. But they are seeing the form, Krishna as a form. Krishna is there.
But they don't see Krishna as the Supreme Lord. So you're right, but why is that a better position?
Because it acknowledges that he's a person.
They acknowledge that he's a person. And so, Prabhupada writes that offenders like Shishupal, again, setting aside who he is in the general context, they'll have to pay for their suffering, their offenses. But because they have at least acknowledged Krishna, even in an offensive way, after suffering the content, they'll purify to a point of perfection and be able to ultimately come to the platform of pure bhakti. So that position is much, 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 much greater than that of the Mayavadi, who has no hope to purify because they don't even engage with Krishna even in an inimical way. If you engage with Krishna in an inimical way, Krishna is so kind that ultimately you'll become purified. But for the Mayavadi, there's no source of becoming purified. So it's a much, much more degraded. And on the surface it thinks, oh, somebody to Krishna's face insulting, that is worse. Right? But actually, even that Krishna, just like Putana, right? She got the position of mother even though she tried to kill Krishna. Krishna took just the fact that she wanted to be mother and looked at that. That's how magnanimous Krishna is. Okay? So, in that regard, we have, and so when Narada Muni is speaking about, the demons and their meditation, of course, he is speaking out of great humility because their meditation is not bhakti, it's not anukulya. Their mood is not favorable. So it is not the same as the devotees remembering of Krishna, right? That is Yudhishthira Maharaj's one of his questions, how Shishupal could have achieved this because he was so envious, right? So it is not bhakti because it is not favorable in intent, but it's a position that one can ultimately purify from because at least they've engaged in some mode of Krishna. So. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Nrsimhadev Chaturdasi ki
Jai.
Prabhupada Maharaj ki
Jai. Hare Krishna.